Spices and ships. The East India Company arrives. The arrival of the British East India Company marked a significant turning point in the history of India. It was a time when the world was becoming increasingly interconnected through trade and exploration. Written by William Dalrymple in The Anarchy, the story of the East India Company is one of ambition, greed, and transformation. It is a tale that begins not with the clash of armies, but with the exchange of goods and the signing of contracts. The story of British India begins not with conquest, but with commerce. The bustling markets of India were filled with exotic spices, fine textiles, and other treasures that European merchants coveted. In the year 1600, Queen Elizabeth I granted a charter to a group of London merchants. This charter was a license to trade, a permission slip to seek fortune in distant lands. This charter created the British East India Company, a powerful entity that would come to dominate trade in the East Indies. The company was not just a business, it was a force that would shape the destiny of nations. Their goal was to seek profit in the East Indies. They were driven by the promise of wealth and the allure of exotic goods that were in high demand back in Europe. India, with its spices, textiles, and riches, became their main focus. The subcontinent was a land of immense wealth and opportunity, and the company was determined to tap into its potential. The company's ships sailed around the Cape of Good Hope, reaching the Indian coast. These voyages were perilous, but the rewards were worth the risks. They sought permission from Mughal emperors to establish trading posts. The Mughal Empire was one of the most powerful in the world, and gaining their favor was crucial for the company's success. They wanted to secure access to India's lucrative markets. The negotiations were complex, involving diplomacy, gifts, and sometimes subtle threats. Thus began a relationship that would transform the subcontinent. The East India Company's presence in India would grow, leading to profound changes in the political, economic, and social fabric of the region. Trading posts to territories. Early British influence. The British East India Company initially presented itself as a trading entity. They built fortified factories or trading posts in key coastal cities. Madras, Bombay, and Calcutta became their strongholds. These posts attracted Indian merchants and artisans. The company traded in spices like pepper and cardamom, as well as textiles, indigo dye, and saltpeter. Gradually, the company's ambitions grew. They sought not just trading rights, but also political influence. They exploited rivalries between Indian rulers. The company began interfering in local disputes to secure advantages. This marked a shift from commerce to conquest. The battle for Bengal Plassey and the rise of Clive. This pivotal moment in history set the stage for British dominance in India. The Battle of Plassey in 1757 proved to be a turning point. It was not just a battle, but a significant event that altered the course of Indian history. The East India Company, led by Robert Clive, faced the Nawab of Bengal, Siraj-ud-Dowlah. Clive's leadership and strategic acumen were crucial in this confrontation. The Nawab had resisted the company's growing influence. His advisors and allies were determined to push back against the encroaching British power. He had attacked their trading post in Calcutta, a bold move that escalated tensions and led to the inevitable clash at Plassey. Clive, with a small but disciplined army and the support of some of the Nawab's own men, achieved a decisive victory. This victory was not just due to military might, but also clever alliances and strategic planning. This victory gave the company control over Bengal. The British flag was hoisted over Indian forts, symbolizing a new era of British dominance. Bengal was one of the wealthiest provinces in India. Its rich resources and strategic location made it a prized possession for any ruler. Plassey marked the beginning of the company's transformation from a trading company to a military power. This transformation would eventually lead to the establishment of British rule over the entire Indian subcontinent. Following Plassey, the East India Company adopted a strategy of divide and conquer. They exploited existing rivalries among Indian rulers. The company made alliances with some rulers while subjugating others. They used their growing military strength to enforce their will. The company's army, composed of British troops and Indian sepoys, proved formidable. They won victories in several battles, including Buxar in 1764. The company's territorial ambitions grew with each victory. They annexed vast territories in eastern and southern India. Their control extended over millions of Indians. The East India Company used a combination of military might and political maneuvering to consolidate its power. They forced Indian rulers into signing treaties that ceded control of their territories. The company's representatives, often unscrupulous, exploited every opportunity to expand their influence. They used threats, bribes, and even deposed rulers who resisted their demands. The Mughal Emperor, once the supreme authority in India, was reduced to a figurehead. The East India Company had become the dominant power in India. The East India Company's rule had a profound impact on Indian society and economy. The company's focus shifted from trade to revenue collection. They imposed heavy taxes on Indian farmers. This led to widespread poverty and hardship. The company also forced Indian farmers to grow cash crops like indigo and opium. These crops were profitable for the company but detrimental to Indian agriculture. Traditional industries like textile weaving declined under the company's policies. Indian artisans were forced out of work. By the mid-19th century, the East India Company's rule in India faced growing criticism. The company, initially a trading entity, had gradually transformed into a powerful political force, exerting immense control over vast territories. This shift from commerce to governance was not without its problems. The company's exploitation of India for profit, coupled with its brutal suppression of any dissent, sparked outrage. Indian laborers were subjected to harsh conditions, and the wealth generated from their toil was funneled back to Britain, leaving the local population impoverished. The resentment among Indians grew as they faced increasing economic hardships and social injustices. The Sepoy Mutiny of 1857, triggered by controversial rifle cartridges greased with animal fat, shook the very foundations of company rule. This rebellion, also known as the First War of Indian Independence, saw Indian soldiers, or sepoys, rise against their British officers. The mutiny spread rapidly, with widespread violence and significant casualties on both sides. The British Crown intervened, dissolving the East India Company and assuming direct control over India. This intervention was seen as a necessary step to stabilize the region and reassert British authority. The transition marked a significant shift in the governance of India, with the British government now directly overseeing the administration. This marked the formal beginning of the British Raj, a period of direct British rule that would last for nearly a century. Under the Raj, India was reorganized and administered with a focus on maintaining British interests. The British introduced new laws, educational systems, and infrastructure projects, all designed to consolidate their control. The consequences of this momentous shift would continue to reverberate throughout the subcontinent and beyond. The British Raj left a lasting legacy on India's political, social, and economic landscape, influencing the country's path to independence and shaping its future in profound ways.